Welcome, everyone. We're here today to talk about Teddy Hart. And once again, Teddy Hart has been arrested. I mean, he's been arrested pretty much, pretty regularly over the last 10 to 15 years, usually for some really ridiculous things. So TMZ Sports says that wrestling star Teddy Hart arrested allegedly had ecstasy steroids in car. Oh my goodness. Independent wrestling star Teddy Hart, the nephew of Bret Hart and Owen Hart, was arrested last week after cops say he was in possession of ecstasy and steroids. According to the Titusville Police Department documents obtained by TMZ Sports, the drugs were found in Teddy's rental car during a routine traffic stop on Friday in Titusville, Florida. Cops say that they initially pulled over the 43-year-old wrestler at around midnight after they say he ran a red light and traveled at a high rate of speed in a 2022 Mustang. During the stop, though, police said that they smelled an, quote, overbearing odor of burnt marijuana emanating from his vehicle and noticed, quote, an unsealed medical marijuana container with a faded label inside of a glove compartment and as well as, quote, several pieces of loose leaf marijuana shake on one of the car's seats. During an ensuing search of the car, cops said they found a baggie of red pills and a baggie of red powder that both tested positive for the presence of MDMA. They also said they found two small vials inside of a bag in the car that would label Masteron and testosterone cypionate, which cops say are known anabolic steroids. Cops also claimed they found another baggie during the search that contained a blue powdery substance, which they said also tested positive for MDMA. Teddy, real name Edward Annis, was arrested and booked on 2 felony charges, possession of MDMA and possession of a controlled substance without prescription. Records show he was released from custody on Saturday. This is far from the first time the wrestler has been in trouble with the law. He's been in and out of jail multiple times in the last few years, including back in 2021, when he was also accused of being in possession of controlled substances. Every few months, your boy Teddy Hart, he just pops up out of the ether and something bad happens. A couple of months ago, there's a documentary called Dangerous Breed. That was a 3-part documentary on Peacock detailing how Teddy Hart was abusive towards women and his suspicious behavior towards a female wrestler or a potential female wrestler who went missing. There have been multiple women that have said that he has been involved with sex trafficking. He's been arrested numerous times for controlled substances. Let's get into some of those things right now, because why not? I mean, it's been a really bad time for Teddy Hart. Let's go back, get in our way back machine to 2021. This is from Wrestling Inc. Pro wrestling veteran Teddy Hart is currently incarcerated in Fort Worth, Texas, at the Tarrant County Correction Center. Records from Tarrant County shows that Hart was arrested on Wednesday, February the 10th. The Arlington, Texas Police Department picked him up on 1 charge of evading arrest, detention with a vehicle, and 1 charge of injury to a child, elderly individual, or disabled individual. Records also show that Tarrant County Sheriff's Office arrested Hart that same day on 1 charge of possession of a penalty group 1 controlled substance, which usually covers cocaine or heroin or methamphetamine or prescription narcotics. The records do not state which substance Hart was charged for. Hart was jailed in Fort Worth last October on the same charges, which were related to a previous arrest in 2016. It looks like the evading arrest charge and the injury to a child, elderly individual, or disabled individual charge are from the previous arrest, which he initially did time for. It's possible that the charges he is currently in jail for are due to a parole or probation violation. So this was in 2021. Got caught selling drugs. Teddy Hart is selling drugs, doing drugs, having in possession of drugs. I'm not going to say how I feel about people being in possession of drugs. Technically, I don't really care. I really don't care if he wants to do drugs. You know, that doesn't mean anything to me that he wants to do drugs, that he wants to sell drugs, which seems to be the case. My issue is with some of the more, let's say, viciously criminal acts that Teddy Hart has been accused of. For this, we have to go back to 2016, back to the Calgary Herald. Wrestler Teddy Hart no longer facing sex assault charges in Alberta. So he had been arrested for, this was documented in that Dangerous Breed documentary that was posted on Peacock. I don't know how many of you have actually gone and watched it, but there's a lot more of the backstory involved with this Teddy Hart being involved with two women and their abuse thing, but we'll talk about that in a second. So this is from the Calgary Herald. It says, the Crown has dropped criminal charges against Teddy Hart, a member of Canada's legendary Hart wrestling family, and known for his daredevil antics both inside and outside the ring, as well for his breeding of Persian cats. Hart, whose real name is Edward Annis, was charged with assault, unlawful confinement, and sexual assault against two women in Sherwood Park, just east of Edmonton, in 2013 and 2014. The charges were withdrawn at the start of the preliminary hearing, May 26th. A spokeswoman for Alberta Justice says the Crown determined after a few review that the case did not meet the criteria needed to proceed. Lawyer Kent Teskey says his client had always maintained his innocence. Quote, Teddy has had this fog of charges over him for a year and a half, Teskey said. He's relieved and looks forward to getting back to work. The same day the charges were withdrawn, Hart signed a peace bond agreement not to contact the two women for 2 years. Teskey said Hart has no interest in contacting the complainants. Hart is the grandson of Stu Hart, founder of Calgary Stampede Wrestling, and nephew of famed wrestler Bret the Hitman Hart. At 18, he became the youngest wrestler to sign with what is now WWE. He later worked on other wrestling circuits in the United States, Mexico, and Europe. A March profile in Rolling Stone magazine detailed his eclectic lifestyle. He also has a side career breeding Persian cats. A pilot for a reality show about Hart, titled Heart Attack, was filmed but never aired. A description of the show says Hart, quote, lived in a mansion filled with models, bikers, and 50 Persian show cats. A producer of the show, Kurt Spinrath, is making a short documentary about Hart called Heart of Darkness. Spinrath said that since the charges were withdrawn, Hart has received more wrestling offers. There are also plans for him to open a wrestling school in Los Angeles. He certainly seems to be reinvigorated in his career, strangely enough, said Spinrath. Promoters from all over North America have been scrambling for him. Teskey said Hart lived in Sherwood Park during the time of these women's allegations. Hart was in Texas when he was charged by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in late 2014 and returned to Canada to turn himself in. Now, this whole scenario is detailed in that Dangerous Breed documentary. Apparently, all of this spins out of this reality TV show that Teddy Hart was trying to get together with this producer. Teddy Hart and his girlfriend were living in a house. They brought in another girl who turned out to be an actress. Then both the girlfriend and the actress claimed that Teddy Hart was molesting them and beating them, and that they couldn't leave, and that he was being violent towards them. And these are the two women who were bringing the charges against him in this case. So Teddy Hart beats this case. He goes down to Texas where he meets another girl, kind of abuses her on camera. That's detailed in the Dangerous Breed documentary. And then he meets, the young lady who ends up going missing. So in April of 2023, the Edmonton Journal actually does a bit of a story on Fred Crouch and the Dangerous Breed documentary, which did very well, apparently, for Peacock. Apparently it was nominated for some awards, but I think we'll get into that in a second. It says, Edmonton-based filmmaker Frederick Crouch spent nearly a decade tripping over dozens of cats while filming one of the most colorful members of the Hart wrestling family. Crouch saw it as a new reality TV hit, a mixture of Jersey Shore and toddlers and tiaras. That was until a young woman went missing. The 3-part docuseries called Dangerous Breed: Crime, Cons, Cats follows the exploits of Teddy Hart, Stu Hart's grandson, and the youngest person ever signed to a WWE wrestling contract. Shortly after being signed, Teddy Hart was released from that contract for being too difficult to work with. In the years that followed, Hart eventually married and settled in Sherwood Park. He ran a wrestling school out of his home and bred and trained Persian cats. There should be a flag on running a wrestling school, because I believe that was his friend. He trained a couple of people, and it wasn't that many. He basically just verbally berated them. That was pretty much it. Crouch says, this guy just had cats, and it smelled terrible. He acted as if he made a lot of money off this, and it was just a cool thing, and I was like, all right, I'll film it. In 2014, Hart was accused of sexual assault by his ex-wife and an ex-girlfriend. In 2016, it should be noted that these two people lived in the same house with Teddy Hart, his quote-unquote ex-wife and his ex-girlfriend. They lived in the same house. Next, in 2016, Hart became a person of interest in the disappearance of 29-year-old Samantha Fiddler. Fiddler was training to become a wrestler and mixed martial artist with Hart in Florida at the time of her disappearance. Crouch says he is a very unique individual. There's definitely a lot of people that were hurt by his behavior. Crouch says he also regularly witnessed Hart's erratic ways. After 10 years of filming Hart with hopes of creating a reality TV series, Hart's legal troubles made the series difficult to sell to broadcasters. Crouch was set to abandon the project until the disappearance of Fiddler inspired him to see if any of the collected footage could help find her. Crouch says, when I was approached to make this series, I had already spent a year trying to solve the mystery with my friends. At this point in time, our best option to solve this is to get Samantha Fiddler's name out there. Fiddler went missing in Florida, where she was said to be stuck without identification and may have been struggling to find a way home to Edmonton. Let's put a pause right here. Apparently, the claim is that Teddy Hart took her passport and a lot of her other identification. Also, she was training at Team Vision Dojo, which is home to sex offender Chase and Rance, and also where they did creepy videos that were basically apartment wrestling kind of videos where they would do, there's no other way to put it, they were doing like kinky stuff. I think Teddy Hart was like punching people in the balls, all kind of BDSM kind of stuff. It was really sick. Let's move on. It says, while local authorities claim they took appropriate actions to attempt to find Fiddler's, others insist she was just another indigenous victim disregarded by the authorities. Fiddler has never been found. It says, Crouch currently has about 20 different projects in the works. We're going to skip that. Dangerous Breed is already being recognized and is one of the 3 nominees for this year's the City of Edmonton Film Prize. The movie came in 3rd place, by the way. It was one of 3 options and it came in 3rd. So Teddy Hart, as usual, very close, but no cigar. So we're not done talking about Teddy Hart because he's been screwing up a lot. You know, he's just a real big screw up. Some of his screw ups were detailed in the book Pain and Passion, which was a book on the Hart family and Calgary Stampede Wrestling. And we're going to get into that because, you know, I don't know why I didn't start this video with Teddy's crazy wrestling stuff first and then get into his criminal behavior. So now we're going to get into some of the crazy wrestling stuff from Teddy Hart. So let's get into this book. It says, Teddy's daredevil moves were phenomenal, easily among the best in the business, and he seemed to be driven by a hair-raising combination of crazy and fearless that gave the stunts a razor's edge other high flyers didn't possess. At the time, his recklessness had many shaking their heads. He'll be in a wheelchair in 4 years, Bob Leonard once remarked when asked about Stu's wild child grandson, in many ways the black sheep of the 3rd generation. Serious injury seemed a distinct possibility. Harry tells of a 2006 match his cousin had in Germany, where Teddy did a moonsault from the top of a 25-foot lighting tower, flying towards 8 wrestlers who didn't catch him properly. Instead, Teddy crashed through a chair at ringside, gashing himself badly under the armpit, dangerously close to an artery. An incident at an independent show in New Jersey, had the internet buzzing when Teddy climbed on top of a soda machine, launching himself at his opponent. There was another miss, and Teddy struck the concrete so hard that the bout was stopped briefly, while he disappeared to the parking lot to vomit. Despite his exciting work, Teddy had developed notoriety on the independent circuit as a troublemaker who promoters couldn't control, either in the ring or out of it. When he cut his off-the-wall promos in these profanity-filled rants, Teddy had known to demean the promotions he worked for and occasionally spoil storylines. He would also exude an arrogance that won him a cult following of both hardcore fans and serious detractors, whom he dismissed as player-hating sons of bitches. Quote, "If there was pussy around, you guys would be cock-blocking the shit out of me." He crowned it. He crowed in one interview, "Just like you're trying to cock-block me out of being the champion." He was so fond of declaring, "Don't let your girl watch my tapes because she might get wet and it won't be sweat. And you might as well throw her out of the bed because you know she'll be thinking about Ted." Throw her out of the bed. She'll be thinking about Ted. Oh my goodness. It seems inspired by Scott Steiner. It says, "It was an extreme version of God's gift to women's strips so many wrestlers had employed over the years. But when he got too excited, Teddy took the sexually explicit jive to places that promoters wince, talking about raping his opponents and comparing it to pimps beating their hookers. Quote, "You're going to have to cut a pace you never cut before," he sneered at one foe. "It's going to be like a porno. Well, whoever can last the longest blows the biggest shot in the end." Whoever lasts the longest will blow the biggest shot in the end. Well, you know what? Prophetic words from Teddy Hart. Prophetic words from Teddy Hart. Oh my goodness. Yikes. So that's from the book Pain and Passion. So one of my favorite stories, and this is going to end on this one because it's not necessarily criminal as much as I just look at it and laugh, is Teddy Hart whooping CM Punk's ass in like a Waffle House or something like this. This is absolutely incredible. So apparently several witnesses saw this occur and have been very vocal about what happened. So this version is from WrestlingNews.co. This is from where Petey Williams, he was the one who is the guy telling the story. He says, "We're eating and I saw Teddy and Jack Evans walk in there. Then he says, we turned around and pretty much like Teddy and Punk walked out. And it was kind of like one of them says, 'You got a problem?' And he's like, 'You got a problem?' There was like one shove. I can't remember who shoved who first. Then it was just a couple of quick punches. Teddy got the upper hand. I think like Punk kind of tripped. And Teddy got tripped over him or something like that. So Punk was on his ass. Teddy was like punching him. And then Sabu jumped in. This all happened within 20 seconds. Sabu jumped in and kind of tore them apart. And as Sabu is trying to tear them apart, Teddy still has Punk's hair and is trying to kick him in the face. So that wasn't it. Bill Behrens, who was a road agent for TNA, he tells eWrestling.com in 2018. Well, he was also talking to Hannibal. Hannibal TV. Well, we're going to get into what Bill Behrens had to say about this version of the events. He says, "It was like a really bad UFC fight in that all of a sudden to the left, there's a fight that has really just started. From the very beginning, it was a takedown by Teddy, Punk down, and Teddy's just destroying him. I think Sabu was walking up with this, but regardless, Sabu ran in and got Teddy to focus on him. He broke for Sabu, so Sabu did save Punk on that particular one." So Teddy Hart beat up CM Punk. I mean, come on, this is comedy gold right here. I would pay anything to see this one dramatized on Dark Side of the Ring. But from 2016, this is Teddy Hart's version of events. He says, quote, He hadn't trained MMA as long as those other guys. Wrestler versus wrestler is a way for him to redeem himself for a fight he had lost a long time ago. If I lost a fight, I say I lost a fight. I've never heard of him one time say Teddy Hart got the best of me. I slapped him in the face first. He got me down. I never heard it. I wanted us to make money on the fact that we had a fight. So Teddy Hart is pitching a MMA fight with CM Punk, because at this particular time, I think CM Punk is creeped on into the UFC. So Teddy Hart says, I beat him up and knocked him down and talked shit about him, but I thank him for all he's done in pro wrestling. If he can't get a fight in MMA, I hope somebody calls me. CM Punk versus Teddy Hart in the UFC would make a lot of money for Dana White. So he gonna tell the story of how it happened. He says, it was overdoing too many moves in Ring of Honor, and he was ballsy enough to come up to me. He threw the first slap, and it led to us being friends down the road when I saw his true talents. I didn't know he was that talented until he moved into WWE. You can ask the 5 people that were there. Jack Evans, Petey Williams, Johnny Devine, Sabu, Chris Sabin. I've not heard those guys say it was anything but a squash. I hope after a year of MMA training, CM Punk would kick my ass in a fight, but at least I would fight. I think I'm tough enough to go in a couple of rounds with anybody in the UFC. I don't think I'd win a fight against any of them, but I'd last a round or two before getting tapped out or knocked out. This man is a bona fide psychopath. All right? From being accused of assaulting women, from being accused of having drug paraphernalia, to beating up his co-workers. I mean, what more do you need? Teddy Hart is an absolute psycho. All right? Absolute psycho. How this man continues to walk around unfettered in our society is amazing to me. Teddy Hart is a case study in people who just have so much good fortune and they try to squander it as much as possible. Teddy Hart is such a bad human being that his own father believed he was guilty of the sex crimes that he was accused of in Canada. So bad, his own father looked directly into the camera and said that if he was not my son, I would not support him, but I have to support him because he's my son. Everybody has given up on Teddy Hart. Everybody. We just look at him now more like a punchline. This man is absolute filth. All right. I don't care about him getting arrested for being in possession of drugs. I don't care that he had drugs. I care that this guy continues to get arrested. He continues to get opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, despite the fact that he just wants to be in jail. He has that DMX syndrome where it's like if he's not in jail, he misses it and he's got to go back for a while. You know, it's one of those things where he lives life by a completely different set of rules and standards than most people. Teddy Hart is something else, right? He is a completely different breed of human being. And it's amazing to me that no matter whether you put it in a book or a documentary or up on a blog post, or no matter where you put it, Teddy Hart eventually pops up. And there's eventually some crazy stories to tell. So Teddy Hart's been arrested. And to the surprise of no one, he's going back to jail. Is he going to stay in jail for a long time this time? Depends on how Florida really punishes people for the possession of drugs and whether they take his priors into account, which they probably won't. So he might not be in jail that much longer. We'll see. But thank you for your time. I'll talk to you guys later.